We're live. What's going on,
Yeah.
everyone?
Hi guys.
What's up, guys?
What's going on?
We are
So
live.
we're joined with today by a really cool project doing stuff in the comics and crypto space. So we had to bring them onto the podcast and had to talk to them. So very, very pleased to welcome UFORIKA. And I was wondering if each of you guys could very, very, very briefly just introduce each of yourselves, and then we can get a little bit into the project and talk a little bit about comics.
Sounds great, Spencer and Sean. Look, thanks for having us. It's great to be here. We've been very excited to jump on this. And I know before we went live, we were telling you how excited we were to be here on this one and some of the sessions that I've been watching in the run up to this. So I'm Simon, co-founder and CEO of UFORIKA. So we'll talk about how my journey with comics and particularly NFTs and collectibles has come to be. But for now, I have a career history in IT. That's where I've spent the majority of my career, working with some of the big organizations that you will all have heard of: Apple, Lenovo, Microsoft, HP, Intel. And we'll dig into why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing what we're doing and why that's relevant. But that's me. I'll hand you over to my other co-founder, Zach.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm a CPO here at UFORIKA. My background is actually in the film industry, so I spent 10 years in the film industry, working across most verticals: acquisition, product, production, sales and distribution. But I love the creative side of the industry, taking scripts and taking them all the way to product release and top 10 download charts in the UK. That's what, I love the most. And big gamer, RPGs, my favorite kind of games. I love focusing, on the narrative and characterization, and that's why I'm here producing a comic book. It's only natural, and love it.
That's awesome. I'm actually a producer out in the Bay Area, so I produce a lot of commercials, but I've done films as well. And yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll chat about films after this.
I was going to say, we'll chat about films as well. Sure, this could be a whole new podcast we can spin off to as well, right?
Yeah.
Let's shoot over to Charles.
Yeah, I'm Charles J. Martin. I am the creative director of a small publishing company in Oklahoma called Literati Press, and I am serving as one of the comic creators for this project, essentially writing the script and working with Jonathan on the execution of kind of taking this immense world that they've built with UFORIKA that will serve within the video game and everything else that rolls out with it, but specifically narrowing the focus down to a small group of characters to try and give a little bit more context and a little bit of humanity to this immense world. My background in comics started back in 2010 when we started publishing through Literati Press, and we are a comics first publisher, so we do some fiction, but last couple of years we've had some successes with Clamorell's Daughter, which got named to some best of lists. Just recently got listed to Kirkus's indie books to watch or to read list in June, and then Res Detective, which I served as an editor for, which was on a huge amount of best of lists for middle grade graphic novels. And the comic that we ended up kind of pulling into here was We Promised Utopia, which was another big sci-fi world that Jonathan Kelsch and I were working on, that one of our friends who also did work with UFORIKA saw and thought that we might be a good fit to come over here. And the benefit of We Promised Utopia showed our ability to take a really grand idea and bring it down small enough into so that you can really see the personalities and the people impacted by these bigger than life ideas. So that's how I came about.
That's awesome.
Charles putting us to shame there.
I'm a writer. I like to talk about myself.
Oh, good man. Good man.
Well, since Charles shared, I guess, his background in comics, maybe Simon and Zach, you guys could do the same.
I was talking with my wife about this earlier, actually. So for me, my introduction to comics came through my dad, and in the UK, the Beano was the particular favorite, and for him, growing up, he was born in the early 1950s, and at that point, the Beano was just starting to progress through to kind of more colors and introducing characters, latterly like Dennis the Menace and Nasher and that kind of series. So, for me as a little boy growing up, he would introduce me to the Beano stories, and then, really I started after that to discover DC and Superman, and that was, for me, that was the first kind of real character that I really just totally fell in love with, immersed myself completely in that world, and really from there it started scaling. So I started collecting Superman as a character, and then inevitably that led me on to discovering other characters, and then drifting into the Marvel universe and starting to look at and explore some of the Marvel characters. And as I've grown up, I've also then grown up with the film franchise that span off the back of the comic franchise, and involved and immersed in all of those worlds, all of those characters. And now I've got 2 young children of my own, and my son in particular is starting to begin his journey into these worlds and universes. And I think that's what's really special for me, is that it makes me think about how I was introduced to this creative medium through my father, and now as a father myself, introducing my son into this. It's just really cool.
That's awesome
to think about it in that way, and to kind of start rediscovering those stories again through his perspective for the first time. Because I think when you start to engage with a story yourself, you get stuck into it, you've gone through it, and then you grow up a little bit, and you start looking at things in a different way. So when you have children of your own and you start to see and experience the stories again through their eyes, it brings you back into that world for the first time again, which is something that's really, really special. But I think, in general, for me, comics as a medium just ticks so many boxes of the things that I'm enthusiastic about. So, really good artwork, creative storytelling, very visual storytelling, being able to actually condense, like Charles was saying earlier, some quite immense, massive worlds into a very kind of, condensed art form, which tells the story through amazing artwork and very to the point, deliberate script writing, which is something that we've been, working on quite hard on our side. But all of those things combined is what draws me to it as a medium. And it was one of the reasons why, when we started working on UFORIKA as a project, we always very early on wanted to explore comics as a medium to bring our IP to life. And we were very committed to doing that and figuring out how we would go about that. And as Charles said, we have been very fortunate to work with some amazing people. And through those people, it's kind of drawn a network that we've got to know other people, that has then led us to people like Charles and Jonathan, who have come on board and worked with us. So, yeah, it's just a real privilege for me to have, gone through my comic journey as a young boy, growing up, taking it through to my children, and now doing it myself as well. It's just the most special thing. But I'll stop talking there before I go on for the next hour, and I'll let Zach give you his insights into his worlds and how he's experienced it.
Well, do you know what I was going to say? This is bizarre because I feel like you just copied me, Simon. I'm not even joking. The first comic book I was ever introduced to was Dennis the Menace from my dad.
Wow.
And that's
all
I read for a long time.
The Beano in the UK,
there's no way he's just said that.
in the UK, that was like for our dads, in the UK, the Beano was like, that was the comic strip that you would go to of that generation. So
did I think I was Dennis? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
We were 2 brothers, 1 of 5. It was chaos. It was chaos. So I saw myself in him, so I was just drawn to it. And then after that, I've got to be honest, I've never ventured down the indie path. So it was Batman, and then it was Wolverine. I have quite an addictive personality. So I didn't take off my Batman costume for about 2 years when I was a kid. It's even in life now, and like I'll pick something that I like in food and then I'll eat it straight every night or something for like 6 months. That's the kind of addictive personality
until you get sick of it and then move on to something
until
new.
I get sick of it and I find something else. That's like with Batman, Wolverine. I will go to sleep thinking I am Batman. That's how it's gone. But the Marvel universe for me does tip it. But I can't say I've ever ventured out of Marvel and DC. To be totally honest with you guys.
This is the point where we hand over to Charles, who's now going to take you well outside of the worlds of Marvel and DC, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I own a bookstore as well, and so I have the benefit of like exploring outside of the normal Marvel DC pass. Like, it's part of what I do. But like, I've always been an indie guy, and I've read my fair share of Marvel and DC. But there's like, especially now, more than any other time in comics history, there are so many people telling so many different kinds of stories. It is absolutely the best time in comics. So you can, like, the one that I just read just this weekend while I was on vacation was called Animal Castle. And it's a comic series that is like a sequel to Animal Farm. And it picks up where George Orwell left off, where a bull ends up like taking over the farm and kind of expanding into this castle. And it's just the story of how an authoritarian regime led by this ox, can be overwhelmed by peaceful civil disobedience, by all these bunnies and rabbits who are willing to sacrifice everything to just bring justice to the farm. And like, that's an incredible idea to write in any way, but like to do it as a comic. It offers so many opportunities that you just can't get in fiction. And I'm a fiction writer as well. Like, I'm writing a couple of books now for a couple of different projects. I'll always be a fiction reader and writer, but like now, like, we have reached that point where we've had multiple generations grow up on comics. And so now you have female readers, you have readers from across like the socioeconomic spectrum that are coming into this art form, and more into graphic novels rather than traditional comic books. But so you can, like, if you want to write a pensive shoegazing story about growing up in the middle of Oklahoma, or if you want to write some like highly conceptual political whatever, you can do it, and there's somebody out there to read it if you can just get the art done. And that's the real challenge, but the audiences are there. Sequential art, graphic novels are growing at a faster rate than any other sector of the book market. So it just shows that anything is game, and the weirdest story you can think of, like, there are going to be people that can read it. So yeah, I think it's an extraordinary time. And meanwhile, you have all these writers who are non-traditional comic book writers coming in to write for Marvel and DC, like your Will K. Wilson, Will G. Wilsons, and and the like, Roxane Gay, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who are these luminaries in these other completely different fields, who are writing these amazing comics and really disrupting everything we know about how to write a superhero comic. And I think it's a wonderful time to read for comics. Everybody should be reading comics right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And we were saying, guys, weren't we, actually, before we went live? I was just saying that I was watching the session you had with Reggie Klex the other day, and he made some really great comments, and particularly for me, a couple of comments he made around, look, whatever your purpose is for why you're getting into comics, actually don't forget that just have fun with it as well. There's all these stories that are out there, and you can connect in so many different ways, and some stories will connect with with some more than others, but however it works for you, just having fun when you're doing it, that's what this art form is all about. That's what it's there to do. It's designed to give you a story for you to engage with and have fun while you're doing it, and do it in a really visually stimulating way, and enjoy some incredible artwork on that journey that you go through. And I think that's really important. Sometimes we lose sight of that. So, that's certainly one of the reasons why we approached our work in the way that we have.
I've got to say as well, the artwork that Jonathan has produced is absolutely incredible. It's a shame he couldn't join us today. But he was averaging like 35 hours a page. Like the level of detail is just phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to have a strong talking to. He's going to murder himself at this rate, but he doesn't have any sense of. He doesn't know how to not give everything, 105,000%. So
true perfectionist. Yeah.
When you get the finished pages, you see the labor that he puts into it. There's just nobody that can do like sci-fi fantasy detail pages like him. He's an absolute madman.
Yeah. Well, we're really excited to talk about everything today. And before we do, we like to ask, are you guys collectors? And if so, are you collecting anything right now? Maybe we'll start with you, Simon.
Yeah. So I think, as I said for you, I mean, look, my collection in terms of collectors, I mean, in terms of comics, I've already mentioned to you guys, Superman is a big passion of mine in the comics world, but I've got a fair share of Marvel as well in the mix. But outside of that, I'm also a huge James Bond fan. So cool. I've got a lot of merchandise and collectible items from.
I think you bought quite a lot when you were drunk, weren't you? At auctions.
Yeah, that tends to happen. In fact,
classic drinking and collecting.
If I took
and you woke up like, what the hell's this?
if I took this virtual background off, what you'd see behind me is a signed Roger Moore sort of collectible piece of merchandise, and then I've got some Dr. No memorabilia on my wall in front of me over here. And various other kind of elements to do with the Bond franchise. But yeah, outside of sort of the comic world, from an IP perspective, that was the other kind of IP that I just am totally in love with and continue to be, even when you go through some of the bad movies, and there's been a few of those. But yeah, for me, it was the Bond world that's my collectible passion outside of what we're talking about here.
That's awesome. I'm actually trying to look for some first print Ian Fleming books, like novels. He's the creator of. Yeah.
Actually, that's so. Me too, by the way, Sean. So if you find them, let me know, right? Because I've actually read all of the Ian Fleming books, and then there's other books. So Sebastian Faulks, for example, wrote a follow-on Bond story in the style of Ian Fleming, and there's been a couple of others that have done that as well. So not many people kind of go to that level. So it's nice to hear I've got a fellow enthusiast on the literature side as well, my man. So cheers to you on a Friday.
Who's your prediction for the next Bond, Simon?
Yeah. As it turns out, there's a full set of Ian Fleming first editions on 8 books for $196,000. So I'll send you the link.
Cool.
Well, if UFORIKA goes well, you never know.
$196. I thought that was fine, Charles. It's when you added that 1,000 bit on the end that it was the shame of it. But yeah, who's going to be the next Bond? Big question. That's a whole different podcast as well, I suspect. So
definitely.
But yeah. So for me, outside of the comic book world, Bond is my big go-to from a collectible perspective. Nice. But Zach, how about you?
Yeah, the only thing I've ever collected is Pokemon cards.
Cool.
And I have thousands, and they're all in.
I can vouch for that. He definitely does.
They're all in a really plush leather case. Alphabetical order. I've got my shinies, my dark cards. I absolutely love Pokemon. To this day, I still buy Pokemon merchandise. Do
you still buy new packs?
I don't buy new packs anymore. I haven't done for a few years. I'm sure I'll bounce back into it. I was going through them the other day, actually, just giving them a dust off, making sure they're still clean and looking at
yeah.
I'm sure I will go back to them, but I'm still buying merchandise. I just bought the other month Pikachu hats.
Nice.
And you squeeze the toggles and then the ears go up. Don't ask me why I was buying them. But...
we know why.
No. I went to a festival.
Wear that right now. You need to go get it and wear it and demonstrate.
I know. Well, they're upstairs. I will do. I'll show you
Away.
another time, Charles. But yeah, I took them to a festival. But I'll still buy, you know, funky shirts with Pokemon on and stuff like that. I absolutely love it. Kadabra, that's my all-time favorite card.
Yeah. Have you gotten any of your cards graded?
No, I need to. But the thing is, I won't ever sell them. Ever.
Yeah, you don't need to sell them just by getting them graded. It's more just like the encapsulation and the preservation.
Also insurance.
Yeah.
Insurance.
Well,
yeah.
Well, a lot of the things that we're trying to emulate with UFORIKA, a lot of inspiration has come from Pokemon in terms of that loyalty between player and character, and that satisfaction of evolving your character. I just think it's all-time best ever game, and yeah, I'll never part ways with my Pokemon cards. Never.
Even beyond that, like one of the things that like reminds me a lot of Pokemon and the way that you guys are directed the development of the creatures is it's not just like, hey, make a dragon that looks really super cool. It's you're really wanting to imbue a lot of character and personality in these so that they're identifiable as characters, not just like these mythical beings or whatever. Like these are as important and given as much agency within the story as the human characters are. And I think that's one of the things that was really exciting about this project early on, as we were beginning to talk about it, and that focus on making sure that we weren't just throwing a lot of eye candy at the reader, but everything there had to have weight to it. It wasn't just, hey, here's this cool, skin of or whatever that, looks cool, but functionally has no purpose in the story. Like everything needed to be there and have something that pushed the idea of UFORIKA forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to dive into UFORIKA today. And for our audience out there who aren't familiar, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what the UFORIKA metaverse platform is?
Yeah, absolutely. So UFORIKA really, and again, this will be a kind of a bit of a journey story here. So, UFORIKA at its core is a virtual massive open world platform. That's what we've set out to build and design. And we structured across 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars we always talk to is brand and IP, leading to platform experience. But all of that is underpinned by some innovative new game engine technology, which members of our team who obviously are not on this call, but are on the tech side, they're game industry veterans. And our CTO, Stephen, in particular, has a specialism for game engine design. And it was really approaching the concept of metaverse in a different way, and particularly, that relationship with content creators and edit tooling and how we could approach that in a different way. And that's on the technical side, everything that we're building towards. Now, on the IP side, we didn't want to just kind of come to market and go, well, we're kind of a tech company and we're doing some cool stuff with tech. As you've probably got to hear by now, in our team, we're all way too creatively driven and passionate to just be a tech company. So we wanted to bring our project to market in a way that brought some new IP to the game. And we all wanted to create something that users and players could almost bond with. And just like Zach was talking to previously around Pokemon, Pokemon is a lifestyle, right? So, when people and Pokemon's one example, but it's something that sticks with players and users for generations. They get connected to those characters, they invest in the world that they're going into, and everything kind of scales out from there. And that's something that we wanted to replicate and bring to UFORIKA as a project. So that's really why we've started to explore the comic book medium as an art form to bring our IP to market. And that's where we are right now in terms of our user journey. And we created, initially, it was a kind of script writing process that started very high level with Zach and myself, really, and our third co-founder, Adam. And we just started to really sketch out the kind of world that we wanted to build. And if we were going to put a narrative behind this, what would we want to see? How would we want that to evolve? What were the kind of themes that we would want to bring out in that story? And we got it to a point that we were happy with. And then, as Charles mentioned, we had a collaboration with somebody else called Ryan. And Ryan was a contact through Zach in the film industry. And long story short, Ryan put us on to Jonathan and Charles and said, well, look, I love where you guys are heading with this story. I think you should have a chat with these guys and get them on board. And, we instantly connected and everybody fell in love with the story and the world. And Charles and Jonathan, really have been instrumental in shaping that script and taking it further. And then Jonathan on the art side has then, progressed things even more. And then we've got on the game side, all the creative character work is being driven by somebody called Ian, who's another game industry veteran. He's done a lot of work on some massive franchises over the years. So we've got all of these kind of creative wizards, really, who have brought all of this narrative to the fore, and it's just been a real privilege to go through that creative process. And I think Charles will probably maybe correct me on this, but it's rare that you connect with people where you actually, we rarely have any friction in the process that we've gone through. We've all been on the same page, so to speak. Generally everybody's pulling in the same creative direction, and we're all very kind of constructively critique each other in terms of the direction that we go in, but everybody is still pulling in the same direction. There's nobody on our creative team that kind of goes, yeah, hey, that sounds cool, but actually we want it to go over here in this direction, and actually this character needs to do this. And I know that's completely where you didn't want it to. We've not had any of that yet. I stress yet. We've got other issues in the pipeline, right? But to date, it's just been a real joy to work with these extremely talented people. And really, the themes that we tease out through the comic book are, that relationship between human and non-human creatures, concepts of hope, relationship, trust, ambition, kind of quite powerful themes that come through here. But this kind of brings us back to some of the things that Charles was saying when we first presented some of the character work. This was always more than just hey, here's some cool characters, what should we do with these? There was already a kind of a driving force behind it. And all of that really is encompassing what UFORIKA is and the vision for the company in its entirety. And that's why it's such a massive world that we've set ourselves out to build. And yes, it's hugely ambitious, but we've been extremely lucky to be connected with the people that we have been to date, and we're just enjoying the ride for now. But this, Charles, you might correct me here and say, look, that's completely wrong. I hate these guys, and it's been a horrendous process. And I don't know.
I think so. I have one of the other projects that I work on with Promise Utopia has kind of a similar setup, because with that one we work with an energy engineer and a geophysicist, and I've worked with a lot of a lot of teams and a lot of teams of all creative people, where everybody is, well, not creative people, all artsy people. And I think the difference between working with people who kind of who learn how to work within fields outside of art, and then people who have only know art, you tend to have less, not always, but you tend to have less friction, because there is an understanding that we're all filling roles to get to the greater good. And the benefit of working with the UFORIKA team they also have us kind of working on the peripheries of the core game. So what we're working on now is kind of lead in to get to where the game starts. So kind of prequel stuff. And there is stuff that we're going to be doing that goes in a little bit deeper. But they want us working in a field that is not going to be core game, so we won't be tripping over anybody else's feet, which is really nice. And they've also done a really fantastic job of just kind of laying down the landscape and letting us know where all the boundaries are, and be like, okay, go here, you're going to get hit by a buzzer. You get over here, you get hit by a buzzer, but you got this lane right here, and you do whatever you feel like is best in that lane. And anytime there is a moment where there's something to do with the script or something to do with the art, which is going against things that are beyond our purview as the comic book creators, things that would disrupt something within the game, it is really on us to make sure that we understand, like, we are one cog of a very, very large piece, and we can still create this piece of art within these boundaries that respond to all the other pieces of art that are happening within this magnificent realm of UFORIKA, without having to make allowances, or, you know, or to have like an ego trip where we're like, well, this is what it is, and you're just gonna have to change everything. You know, Jonathan and I have worked in the industry long enough, and we've worked, you know, collaboratively, you know, and across like a number of different industries, where we've kind of learned that, you know, sometimes it is better to have those constraints around you, because there becomes opportunities for risk taking that happens because you've got insulation on both sides. And, you know, and to the credit of the UFORIKA team, they've given us amazing amount of breadth, considering the project that we're working is going to be the first introduction a lot of people will have. And they've given us a lot of leash, and it has been a joy to work for. And so, like, yeah. And, you know, you've read 3 scripts so far, and you haven't got angry at us yet. So I think we're pretty mind melded at this point.
You know, it's interesting, right? I was just thinking, just as you were talking, Charles, you know, that we actually put the scripts together very quickly. You know, I think sometimes you can spend an awful lot of time, you know, working on scripts, and you know, they came together quickly, and I think that's just testament to, you know, the way that everybody's worked on this. And actually, you know, as Charles has said there, you know, the interesting thing for us when we talk about introducing a new world to people, you know, we could have easily made the decision to say, well, hey, you know, we're going to keep ourselves in stealth mode, and then we're going to unleash the game, and, you know, that's going to be people's first touch point. But we didn't want to do that. You know, we felt that we wanted to do it on a deeper level for users. You know, we wanted to give them a story, and we wanted to introduce characters in a different way. And, you know, I think by doing it like this, you know, the comic book is the first touch point that users have with the world of UFORIKA. And, you know, so, you know, for us, actually, as we bring that to market, there's a bit of pressure there, because we also want to make sure that that's a world that kind of people connect with. But we're not worried about that, because, you know, we've seen the standard that, you know, Jonathan and Charles have been working to, and, you know, we've put it in front of just A/B testing in front of many people who have all gone, whoa, this is really cool. So we're confident in that, and we're pleased with that route we've taken.
I think the first 3 scripts, though, are the easy part, because it's all present day. So if you take the lore, for example, it's set in the past. So part 1 set in the past, but then part 2 goes even further to the past, and part 3 goes even further to the past. Now, present day, the humans don't understand why these creatures are here. They've never heard of the Infinite Koltak Alliance, which are the evil alien alliance that used to rule the galaxy. So the question is, after these first 3 scripts, do we spin off and explain where these creatures came from, who the Koltak Alliance are? That's the spanner in the works. We've not got to that conversation yet. Do we go back in time, essentially? Because it's all present day at the minute.
I've actually got an outline with all that. I haven't shown you yet.
See, I was going to say, I knew you had, Charles.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things about this particular project is, you know, this is a project that is close enough to, you know, there's always leaps of logic that happen with any kind of sci-fi. So this isn't so far as like Star Wars, where it's basically fantasy. This is close enough where we can connect our present day to UFORIKA with a pretty straight line. But beyond that, yeah, like Zach was mentioning, there's these other, you know, fantastical threads that are going to intersect with the human storyline. There are so many places to attack UFORIKA as a storyteller that, like, I mean, we could make as many stories as we want and not even get into the core gameplay of UFORIKA, because there is so much world being built around here. And the real challenge of it from a storytelling perspective is not to let it get so dense that it becomes impenetrable for a first-time user. And that's really, that's with the first 3 issues, but even on issues past that, that's really the challenge, is like finding those, few characters that become the entry points that kind of walk the reader in there, that make it seem less daunting. So it doesn't seem like you're, walking in book 2 of, a Tolkien epic, but rather this is very, very approachable, and, knowable without having to know the vocab, this grandiose vocabulary off the bat. You just need to know some of the simple human themes that run, in stories going back to the beginning of mankind, and that, this is relatable. Don't let the art fool you. Like, this is, there's a lot of threads that from our normal life that are going to play it, and the anxieties that we're facing now, and how they then spin off into the future and lead us to this lonely, silent planet out in the distant far away.
I think that's something which at the start, Jonathan maybe struggled getting his head around, as in, what is the focus? Because obviously you need the human characters because they're relatable, but do you focus more on them, or do you focus more on the Ica creatures? And we discussed it as a group, and we ended up going in the direction of the Ica creatures because they're there for the longevity. And again, bringing it back to Pokemon, when you think of Pokemon, you think of the creatures, don't you? You don't think of the trainers. But it was interesting to talk it out as a team and, make that path.
Well, so I guess I'm curious, when is the actual release of the comic book itself, the first issue? And then also we have a question from the audience: is it only going to be a digital release, or are you guys going to be doing a physical release as well? Yeah.
Oh, there's a question. Go on,
Go for it. Well, I was going to say, so it will be released. The mint will be end of July.
Coming up, nice.
So not an actual confirmed specific date, but it will be end of July. For now, it will be token gated. So the front cover is an NFT, and you'll go to our website and you'll be able to read the PDF. So for now, the only plan is digital. We will do physical, where Charles will come in because he's obviously a publisher in North America. And then I've got a few contacts within the film industry that also distribute in Asia and Europe. But in terms of North America physical, we'll be leaning on Charles for that.
Yeah, I think, what you may have seen, if anybody's aware of us as a project and follows on our socials, we're in a campaign phase right now. So this is that launch phase that we're in. So we actually partnered and collaborated with some very cool organizations. So we started off with Yeehaw Games a week ago, and we've done a limited edition variant cover with them as part of our launch campaign. Cool. This week, we're currently in a collaboration with GameFi, and we've done the same. So we have a limited edition front cover variant with them. And then next week, on Monday, we'll be releasing or revealing the third collaborator organization that we've worked with to create another limited edition cover with. I'm not going to say who that is right now. We'll leave that for next week. But I think really,
there's a competition in the Telegram group, isn't there, to guess who it is?
Oh, to guess who it is.
There is indeed.
Nice.
But
they're big.
We're particularly excited.
Has anybody guessed it yet? I know you can't say what it is, but has anybody gotten it right?
Not yet. Not yet, Spencer. You got time, Spencer. You can come in and throw some ideas out there. So yeah, I mean, look, for us, and look, I mean, we're talking comics and crypto here, right? So inevitably, we have that Web3 element that we address in how we've come to market with this, and the organizations that we've decided to collaborate with. And outside of that, we've got conversations going on with some other very, very cool collaboration projects that I definitely can't talk to. But, again, this is all testament to the standard of the work that Charles and Jonathan, as well on the art side, have created that's helping us stand out in market. So we're in that launch phase right now. As Zach has said, that will lead through to a mint at the end of July. but we've got a few competitions and giveaways in the mix between now and then.
Nice.
I think there's also really interesting conversations to be had about how you use a physical comic book in today's market. And I'm sure nobody in this call, especially Spencer and Sean, would know that it's a very interesting and challenging time in the comic book industry, with 3 distributors, a 4th coming up, with supply chains in whack, and but also thinking through $3 comic book that we grew up with is not a reality anymore. So what is a comic book, and kids that grew up like us, like our children, are they reading comic books? They're reading graphic novels. But how can we make a physical comic book relevant to UFORIKA? And I think there are conversations about is a comic book really a comic book anymore? Is this another way to make this a product that would feed into the goals of UFORIKA, into the video game foundation from which it sprouted from? I think there's a lot of interesting conversations that are being had and will continue to be had as we kind of think through what that will look like for us, considering the unique platform we're coming from that a lot of other comic book stories aren't.
I think the interesting thing, just to add to what Charles was saying there, is when we start to look at this from the video game angle. So if you kind of cast your minds back to kind of console gaming, and you get the physical disc and you'd get it in the box, and then on the inside cover of the box you'd pull out that big thick manual that would then tell you all the buttons and what you'd have to press, all that kind of stuff. And then that wasn't a particularly exciting part of the game, right? To actually have to read the manual and figure out what button to press. So
I don't think anyone actually ever read the manual. So
I'll figure it as you go.
Well, you were telling me you sat there for 10 minutes.
I love the manual.
I was very efficient with my gaming, guys.
Something tells me you weren't very good.
But if you think about that in the context of what Charles has just said, actually the kind of comics as an art form and as a medium, to effectively become the kind of next generation instruction manual for players coming into a new world. But instead of it being instructions around this is the button you press, well, actually it's more of an instruction on these are the values that we live to in this world. And it just so happens that it's a virtual world environment, but we want to tell you the story of why you're here, how this came to be, the ways that you can interact with it, but we're doing it in a narrative art form. And for me, that's something that's particularly cool. And we kind of see that already with some of the other IPs and franchises that are out there now. You've got all the video game spin-offs from the Marvel series. Even you look at Lego. Lego adapted a video game series for Marvel characters, and kids are already familiar with that IP and that and those characters, but they've done it because they've connected with the stories first, and then they're living out those stories.
It's not enough, is it, to be a good game? Good games, they have a life cycle of around a year, and then on to the next good game, and on to the next good game. So that's why it's so important to concentrate on the narrative, the IP, the characterization, to bring people in, to get them to dive deeper and, immerse themselves in the world. And can you hear my dog snoring, by the way? I don't know if you can.
Is he?
He's right underneath me. He's a bulldog. He's a messy dog. Sorry.
When can we actually expect to play the game? Do you guys have an expected timeline for that?
Yeah, so we are in development right now. We had a target for the end of the year to get the first playable out there.
Nice.
So we're still hoping we can hit that, but roadmaps are roadmaps and things can change. So, that could drip into Q1, but that's always been our timeline. And we've got the issue 1 comic book actually kicks off a series of product launches for us. So, issue 2 and 3 formulate part of that sort of product journey as we move towards the platform experience. And we're working towards that. Issue 1 is wrapped up. We're going to be moving on to issue 2, and as Charles has already mentioned, we've already got the scripts. The scripts were already really done for issue 2 and 3. So we need to start working on those. And then in between that, we've got some other NFT-based products that we want to bring to market as well that just complement that user journey, which all factors back into, the way we've described how we want to approach a user onboarding journey, particularly in this space as well, when, we've just got to be honest, for me, it's still not as straightforward as we would like it to be in the Web3 space. There's still a lot of technical hurdles that I think users have to try and overcome before they can get really stuck into these worlds, without having to think about it too much. And we're certainly getting there. The good news is, there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of technical innovation that's happening to get us to that point. And we're trying to work within those parameters at the same time.
Totally. Nice. Well, maybe this would be a good time to do the giveaway that we talked about doing. So we're going to be giving away an upcoming mint for the comic book that you guys are releasing, which unfortunately won't be able to get it to you guys until end of July and when it actually mints. But the way that we like to try to do this is we try to do a trivia question to see who's been paying attention during the stream. Do you guys have any ideas for a trivia? Maybe something that one of you guys said, or something that we've mentioned during the stream
that me and Simon were both introduced to by.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we'll see if anybody's still on right now that was listening that early. But we'll try another one if nobody gets that one.
I was going to say, if anyone gets that one, then we've got some dedicated listeners for sure.
I know, right?
It's just bizarre that you said that.
Don't say it again. You can't say it now, though. Don't say it now. That's the question.
Bizarre.
All right. Well, do we have a backup question? Maybe something that we talked about more recently in the stream.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
What was the main inspiration for the ICAs? The monsters.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. Inspiration for the ICAs. Zach's
inspiration for the monsters in the game.
Zach's all-time favorite collectible and gaming IP.
I think people listening could probably just you could guess some different IPs that involve monsters, cute little monsters.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't call them monsters.
Yeah.
Why? What would you call them?
I don't know.
What would you call them? Creatures.
Creatures. All right, maybe we try something different. Maybe we do, I don't know, a random number. Oh, there we go. Oh, Danny got it. There we go. The comment man himself.
There it is. Daniel Marquez.
Congrats, Danny.
Congrats, Daniel.
Danny, great member of our community.
Awesome guy.
What is the best way for Danny to get in contact with you guys to make sure that he gets his mint?
Or if you guys, if Daniel can send you guys his Telegram handle, for example, then we can just DM and get details. Then we can sort that out on our side. That's probably perfect to do it, if that works for you guys.
Beautiful. It does.
Congrats, Daniel. Very, very lucky man. Honestly, the artwork you are going to see is going to blow your mind. It blew our minds. It's going to blow your mind.
I like that he got the accent mark in there too.
Yeah, very thorough.
Spencer, can you share the screen as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. I want to make sure everybody follows you guys on Twitter. Here's their Twitter accounts. Everyone, make sure to give them a follow. And thanks so much for joining today, guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been such a fun stream.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting us, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah, you gotta have you back on again soon for sure.
Definitely, we're very excited for the mint. We're let us know once you get a date confirmed, for sure.
Pleasure.
Will do.
Make sure it's a Friday night as well.
Yeah. All right. See you, everyone. Bye.